back to Those Vegan Chefs. I'm Stefan, and this channel is dedicated to making you a better vegan cook. Today we have a tomato recipe that we're going to turn into tomato tartare with crispy sushi rice cake, all inspired by our friend Bruce Hill in San Francisco. So let's go. Let's get the sushi rice started. We have a cup and a half of short grain rice, cal roast. Basically just going to rinse the rice until the water becomes clear. We don't have to go crazy on this because we're actually going to overcook this rice just a little. We have our rice is rinsed. Now we're going to add it to our rice cooker. 1/4 cup seasoned rice wine vinegar, 1.5 cups water, 1/2 teaspoon sea salt, mix. Bing! Just like that, the rice is done. So we're looking for the rice just to cool down enough so that we could handle it without burning ourselves, but not so much that it's cold. It's going to make it a lot easier for us to form on the sheet pan so that we could really compact and press the rice down. Have a little bowl of water just to kind of dab the rice paddle. Work this to be about 1/4 inch thick. Continue to work the rice out to the edges, kind of pulling it. Takes a minute. Our second piece of parchment goes down. We're going to spin it this way because it fits the rolling pin perfectly. Push it down. Good amount of pressure. Push it down hard with your hands. Put another sheet pan on top. Give it another big squeeze. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some cans of refried beans or whatever you have around. And you're going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. The Japanese mayo is inspired by the egg yolk sauce we made just last week with the potato confit. All we have to do is just tweak a couple things. Essentially with the tofu, we're just looking to cut it into equal sized pieces. It's more of like a medium dice. It's not that important because, you know, we're going to puree it at the end of the day. So all we're really looking for is to have the tofu be equal so that it cooks equally the same. Okay, we have our tofu diced. Now we're going to throw a small dice on our carrot, 1/4 cup. I'm going to cut the carrot into 4 long strips. And then we're just going to small dice. We're going to combine the tofu, carrots, the water. Basically going to cook it until the carrots are tender and the water has mostly evaporated. Next, we're going to add our turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon poultry seasoning. We're going to cook it on low. The tofu's been cooking for roughly 30 minutes. Most of the liquid has reduced. There's still a little bit of liquid in there, which I'm totally comfortable with. We're going to place the cooked tofu in a bowl, 2 tablespoons olive oil, rice wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar, our mirin, maple syrup. We have our Dijon mustard, handheld immersion blender. Okay, now it's time to make the final adjustment, adding our black sea salt. As we've talked about before, I have a 1/4 teaspoon, but we're going to start out with 1/2. And we also need to adjust the overall salt level to the mayo after we add the black sea salt. Okay, before I ended up using a little less. I think today we're going to go with the entire teaspoon. And we're going to add a pinch of sea salt. That black salt is not enough to actually season the entire mayonnaise. Another pinch of salt. The sweetness is starting to come through. All right, there we go. All right, let's check it out. The first step in our marinade is 3/4 cup water, a kombu sheet, kelp granules, sea salt, mirin, and we have rice wine vinegar, toasted sesame oil. warm the liquid to infuse all the flavors. We don't want to reduce it, we just want to infuse. Our marinade is steeping, so now it's time to prep our tomatoes. We have our pot of water going. We're going to bring that to a boil. The first step in our prep is we're going to remove the core of the tomato. Insert the tip, you put your thumb on top of the stem, and then you turn the tomato and it removes the core. So we'll do another one. Done. And then the last step before we put the tomatoes into boiling water is we're just going to gently score the bottom of the tomato, making an X mark, and that's going to help the skin release. We're going to dump the tomato in. We're talking literally here like 10 seconds, just enough till you start to see the skin of the tomato release. More than 10 seconds. I'm talking maybe 30 seconds. So you can see right there, the skin's starting to peel. Now we're just gently gonna peel the skin off the tomato. We're gonna peel all the tomatoes. We're gonna cut them in half, just straight down. And we're gonna cut right here, right where the stem grows. We're gonna cut right at the bottom. And then I like to use a melon ball scoop. The reason for that is there's this little edge on here that's sharp, and it helps to just gently release and scoop out the seeds. So the goal here is for us to remove the seeds but not damage the actual petal of the tomato that we're going to make. So we're just going to gently scrape out some of that rib that's in there. And we're going to make sure we get all the seeds out. And there we go. We're going to actually use all of this tomato liquid to make a spicy sauce out of our Japanese mayonnaise. We're going to have 2 sauces on it. Next, we're going to cut it in half again, making perfect little petals. We're going to place the petals on a plate with the seed inside facing up. Next, we're going to start pouring the marinade right on top of our tomatoes. Now, overnight is best. If you're going to let them sit overnight, you need to flip them essentially. Nori right on top, pour the rest on. Okay, so an hour up to overnight. Okay, the tomatoes are marinated. We're gonna put them on a baking sheet lined with parchment. The tomatoes were in the oven at 325 for 12 minutes. It's time to fine tune our 2 sauces. We have our Japanese mayonnaise that we're gonna turn into a spicy tomato spread. The first step in this is adding some of our tomato juice. We have a little strainer to keep the seeds out. We're gonna start by incorporating the tomato water. It's going to change the color just a little bit. Here's the sauce. We're going to add just a dash of rice wine vinegar. And this comes back to personal taste. I'm going to add a little dusting of cayenne pepper. We're going to let this set up in the fridge. Sauce number 1 is done. Going back to addressing how you have to take your time right at the end to make any slight adjustments to your sauces. As the sauce sits overnight, it's going to thicken, it's going to have the flavors become more enhanced. This is our Japanese mayonnaise. It's really thick, so we're going to add just a dash of plant milk to thin it. Perfect. The rice is cold. It sat overnight being pressed in the refrigerator. We're going to peel the parchment paper off on top. We're going to use a cutter. We're going to punch out a beautiful disc of sushi rice. We're going to even all the way around. Okay, we have our oil hot. The pan is hot. We have that nice sizzle happening. Now we're going to cook it over medium heat because we really want an even browning that's a deep, dark, golden brown. All right, let's make the tomato tartare. We're gonna start by dicing the tomato. It's very soft, and it is gonna kind of lose some of that shape, but it's okay because we are kind of sacrificing the shape for flavor. Now we're gonna add a dice of Asian pear. We're gonna do a nice small dice, and we wanna do the pear at the very last second so that we keep all of the color and the texture. Chopped chives and pine nuts that are lightly toasted. We're gonna start with just a couple drops of oil. It's gonna add a nice roundness and toastedness. Pine nuts, diced Asian pear, or chopped chive. We have all of our ingredients. Gently mix it. It's better to check it right before we serve it than to assume it's tasting perfect. We're ready. Let's do it. I'm really excited to eat this dish today. The question is, do I use a fork and knife, or do I pick it up and become a complete savage and just take a huge bite?
Savage!
Savage it is! Oh my gosh, here we go. The sesame oil is so bright and light. The crispy sushi rice, it's such a great bite of food, and it's really well balanced. And honestly, it takes me right back to sitting at Oritalia, eating a version of this that was delicious. And now I have a new version that's plant-based and amazing. So we're gonna keep the recipes coming, and I'll see you next week.